Hello and welcome to Thursday Night Tech Talk with Michael Pepper. And tonight we should have some interesting discussion to go on. Let me just do some final touches here real quick. Second. And there we go. Make sure everything's all up and running and that any notifications have gone out to people before I kind of get started here. So, how are y'all doing tonight? Hopefully everybody's doing well and is having a good beginning to their week. And so, yes, Apple Monster, I am early. I decided to get started about 15 minutes early because I realized there are some other streams going on tonight, and also just kind of excited to get going. And so, if anybody has any questions, obviously feel free to throw those in the chat, and I will answer those as I can. I will have the YouTube chat up because here on StreamYard, there tends to be a little bit of a delay in between, so that causes some issues, and we shall see how it goes. Let me pull up my questions or my topics real quick here. So tonight we're going to be kind of talking about hardware and software, in particular with smartphones, and kind of where manufacturers where they kind of went wrong and things like that. So yes, Tech 702. I did technically say 7 p.m. EST, but thinking about it and wanted to hop on here and have a good healthy discussion, and so also Apple Monster, I got your DM. I will check that out later. I appreciate the shout out to our stream tomorrow. Also, while that's coming up, I will be having episode 2 of Creator Interviews tomorrow. I should have called it Creator Talk, I guess. Creator Interviews tomorrow. And episode 3 will be coming in March on the 17th. So I'm still doing Tuesday night stuff, but that's kind of going to be my specialty episodes. And Thursdays will be my new kind of live stream because it tends to be more open. And also, I like to watch some stuff as well on Tuesdays and support the fellow creators and not miss out on that. So, YOLO. Are you at work, Tech 702? Anyways, I just kind of wanted to talk about some things that have come to mind when it comes to smartphone manufacturers lately, and hardware and software wise, and the direction that I've seen them come from and the direction that they're headed and things like that. So first off, I would like to preface this by saying that I use Android and iOS devices on a daily basis. As a matter of fact, one iPhone 11 Pro Max, white, Note 10 Plus, it's the black that kind of gives a bluish hue in the right light. OnePlus 7T, it's the silver model, and the black LG G8. And with that being said, This is sort of gonna focus on Android, but it will go in iOS direction a little bit. So just get them all. That's sort of what I did, but it was mainly because let's get into that a little bit. So that will come up at a certain point too, and how payments affect things, and that kind of affects mindset for the average consumer, and how the smartphone manufacturers are not really developing for that. So let's get into it. So first off, it was only about 4 years ago that smartphones top end was around $1,000. It was the iPhone 7 Plus was around, 899 price point, and these smartphones were starting out at 599, 699. And then when the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus and iPhone 10 came out, the iPhone 10 broke that barrier by hitting at 999 for the base model. Then Samsung came, well, technically Samsung had the Note 8 that was released just before that, and that was at 999, and in some markets was over $1,000 for the base model. And then we had LG still keeping their phones reasonably priced around $500-600, and um, OnePlus was doing devices, $300-400. Now the market has shifted, and we have these devices that are starting at 999 with the S20, 1199 with the S20 Plus, and 1399 with the S20 Ultra. And from this, it says to the consumer, this line that was affordable, this line that was for everybody, is no longer for them, and it confuses people. And yes, there's the A line, which I believe is the um, average consumer line, and S now is for the sophisticated and or wealthy who want all the crazy specs. They don't need it, they want it. And for the people just that want to say that they have the best out there. Whereas Apple kind of did the opposite. They went up in price and then they went down to $749 for the 10R and $699 for the 11. And as far as based on what I found leak wise, that this year's iPhones will stay around the same price point. And here is where history of smartphones kind of come into discussion. So Apple every year basically would release products keeping them kind of around the same price point. And then they jumped that price point up. But I think the reason that they did that was to preemptively get the consumer ready for the idea that these devices are going to be higher price point. So when 5G is added in, they can add it in without boosting the prices up. Where other manufacturers kind of are like, we're going to keep the price down, we're going to try to undercut, we're going to try to offer better, specs for lower price point until we need to. Well, here's the concern with that. $300 price difference between phones that were released 6 months apart is huge. You can buy a whole other phone for the price differences. If you want 5G, you can go out and there are 5G phones that you'll be able to get for that price difference. You could go buy last year's flagship phone and this year's buy a mid-level phone and get the best of both worlds. The other concern is they are now not offering models in the US for those who don't need the 5G. They're saying we're going to throw all these specs at you. You need it. And if you don't buy it, it looks like you're not buying a phone that's meant for the masses anymore. The S line used to be meant for pretty much everybody. When payments came into play with smartphones, and instead of being locked in, you can pay on the device. As soon as you pay it off, you own it. You can take it to any carrier, or you can buy it outright. That kind of created a struggle in the market for the average consumer to understand, is this device meant for me or not? And here's what I'll have to say. Just because you can afford it doesn't necessarily mean it's meant for you. You're spending $50, $60 a month on an S20 Ultra 5G, or when the Note comes out, the Note 20 Ultra 5G, or whatever they're going to call it, when most of those specs you don't need and aren't going to use, is a huge concern to me. What it says is that Samsung is saying that they are no longer creating their top tier for the average consumer anymore. It's why the last 2 years, and probably going on 3 years, none of their S line or their Note line was in the top 5 or even top 10 devices sold nationally. It was things like the iPhone XR, the iPhone 11, the iPhone 8, a couple Oppo phones, a couple Xiaomi phones, and 2 A-line phones. The Samsung A20 and the A50 were in the top 10 last year. And I feel like we're going to see this trend continue. Now, is that a bad thing for the average consumer? No, but not by any means. They offer price points across the board. Apple has started doing that. This past year, they dropped. So the 8, they still offer the 8 series. They don't offer the XS or XS Max, which makes sense because that's last year's devices. They would have to drop the price, and that would be confusing. Most people upgrade every 2 years. So that's kind of the direction Samsung is going, and that's the direction I see the whole smartphone market going, apart from more and better mid-range devices being offered here in the States. But what concerns me is that you have variation in mindset between manufacturers when it comes to producing and releasing smartphones. You have Apple, who basically they put in the hardware that was needed. They didn't overload it with extra RAM. They went in and looked at software and optimized it. They also optimized all their hardware as far as placing camera components and lenses and the glass and the displays and every piece so that the optimal fit is there and concealed. So that's kind of where Apple started off. They did hardware and software together, making a uniform, smooth running devices and things like that. Then OnePlus kind of has come in and done a similar thing where they're offering really good, but they're offering really good specs. And here's why I think that OnePlus is offering similar specs to Samsung and Google and some of these other companies, offering more and more RAM, the faster processors at the lower price point. Part of it is because they can, and part of it is because Android is written to need this hardware to be optimized for it, because they were having such issues and struggling with Android fragmentation, software fragmentation. So the more manufacturers who continue to use similar hardware, the competition becomes who can create the best software for it, who can use it the best, who can give us the best battery life. Samsung's fight has been, we're going to put more RAM, more storage, more cameras, and we're gonna put all the software on here. We're gonna give you an S Pen. We're gonna do all this stuff. But the problem is, up until recently, and even I'm starting to have issues, it wasn't utilized as well as other companies. So even if you're getting more, if that software doesn't take advantage of that hardware, and if that hardware struggles and that software struggles, then you're giving it more than it needs, but the software is not taking advantage of things. But then you have Google who comes in and kind of comes in from the other end, and they come in at a price point where they're in the middle. They're not quite as expensive as the flagship, but they're not as cheap as or as expensive as Samsung's top price devices or the iPhone's top price devices. But they're not as cheap as OnePlus, and they're offering 2 storage, but most places only have 1 storage option. And they're offering hardware that doesn't look as appealing, but where their advantage is they come in with good software. So they use software to kind of act as the middleman and to step in where the hardware is suffering. Where Samsung kind of throws all the hardware in there and all the software, and now they're starting to fix things. Now they're starting to optimize things. One UI 2.0 on my Note 10 Plus didn't kill it. One UI killed my Note 8, killed my Note 7. I mean, my Note 9 was killed by One UI. My Note 8 didn't have One UI, but it suffered using Tizen. It lagged extremely. Then you kind of have these companies that are in the middle where they're going to offer all these features because the more features you throw in there, it causes issues, and then you have to add hardware. At least that's what the manufacturers are convinced of. That's where Samsung steps in and does things. The optimal advantage for any smartphone manufacturer, if I were to give advice, I would say they need to do something more similar to what OnePlus and Apple does. But Samsung needs to remove the gimmicky software that they do. The one take where it shoots all these at once. If you look on their site, it says, well, this is based on how you moved. You have 15 seconds to take a video, and if covered the area right, and if everything was the focus moved correctly, these are the outcome that you'll get. Don't put that in there. If you're trying to get this, if you're going to do that, then you need to say that this feature is meant for the professional and not make it look like it's for the average person, for the soccer mom or dad, for anybody to use. They took away the things that people wanted, and then they add all this stuff. They add these gimmicks, these things that if the software isn't optimized well for hardware, it causes issues. I had issues with my S Pen where if I turn off air gestures, it won't charge all the way, and it will die after like 2 minutes to 5 minutes of using it. My touch screen then will freeze up. I have to restart the device to get it to work. These are not good things. OnePlus comes in and says, well, we're going to offer great hardware. We're going to offer the newer hardware. We're going to offer more RAM because we want those apps that are being developed for the masses, that are being developed for these devices that have all this hardware to be able to run well on our devices. That's the problem, though. So since Samsung has these devices with 12 and now 16 gigs of RAM, then other companies that compete kind of have to offer similar hardware so that their device doesn't get affected. But optimization. is a key. Samsung basically adds more hardware, adds more gimmicks, and then charges hundreds of dollars more. Hundreds of dollars more. But are you really getting $300, $400, $500 benefit out of that? I don't think so. I think that what OnePlus has to offer is more of a benefit than what Samsung has to offer. Shoot, you could get their decked out 12 gigs storage, 12 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of storage. Yes, it's not expandable storage. With the pop-up camera, fingerprint scanner is way faster than Samsung. Doesn't have as many issues with wet fingers. I know this because my 7T has the same fingerprint scanner. Their facial recognition is really, really, really fast and works at like a bunch of different angles. Works sideways. I've tested it. Doesn't work if your eyes are closed. Even if the pop-up camera on their other more expensive models takes 2/3 of a second to pop up, that's still faster than and more reliable than most other forms that are out there. My LG G8, on the other hand, has something that, apart from what Google just added, no other company was using, and that was hidden up in that lovely notch there. Face unlock. No fingerprint needed. So this is where I struggle with these companies saying that they and people saying and people pushing and saying that it's worth it. People saying that it's great. It's not great. It's not worth it because we don't what they're offering can't even be used unless it's under optimal conditions. What they're offering is software that can be utilized on most last gen or even 2 year ago hardware. They're offering cropped in digital zoom when the optical zoom is 2 or 3 times. 2 times for that 30x, 3 times for that 100 to get that 10 and 100 times. Even 3 times on the S20 and S20 Plus is digital. So where are they innovating other than charging for more software? People who are trading in my opinion, are getting ripped off. You're trading in a device that you paid $1,100 for as a Note 10 Plus or more for $600 or $700 in value. $400 less. $500 less than $400 to $500 less than its original value for 6 months of use. I have an iPhone that I could still easily sell for $400, which would have been that much down in value from what it originally cost, but is 2.5 years old. That's the problem, that people are getting cheated because think about how upsetting that is to think about that you paid that much for a device on Android and 6 months, literally 6 months, 180 days later, half what you paid for it. Half to 2/3 at most. Keep this in mind. Let me do a little math for you here. If you paid $1,100 for the Note 10 Plus, and you're getting $700 for it. That's $400 less. I'm going to divide that by 180 days for you and tell you that that's $2.22 a day that you're trading that in for. And if you aren't trading it in, you're paying $1,400, $1,500 for a device. In my opinion, if you're going to do that, they need to support for 3, 4, 5 years. So being intelligent, if you're looking, yeah, I'm not saying buying it for a profit, but I'm saying that when what you're buying goes down in value that fast, that's sickening. Literally $2.22 a day. You can feed a homeless person for half of what your phone is depreciating in over that time. What I'm saying is that it used to be a point in which they offered a reason to spend this much on a device because you were getting support. I hope that Samsung supports this device for 3, 4, 5 years. iPhone 7 will probably, from what I've heard, is going to get supported through iOS 15. That had what, iOS 10 on it when it came out? Let's see. Apps still can be updated. Developers can push updates to it. Yes, hardware is limiting. There are certain functions that even on iPhones aren't being brought in. Functions like dark mode and things like that, I know. But when 5, 6 months down the road, I'm not getting updates, that would be bad. Fortunately, that hasn't happened with my Note 10 Plus, but I know there are people, and I know there was a point in which basically I'm hoping that they do what they promised and start to actually support older devices. Android is available to anyone and you can manually install whatever you want. Yes, given that you have the knowledge and the ability to do it. But then that's like saying that I can install updates on a really old PC. It doesn't mean it's going to work. If the software isn't continued to be developed and supported for the hardware, then you're basing it on and assuming that it's going to run just as smooth. Price is subjective. How is price subjective? I'm curious. Also, Tech 702, if you're available, you can join me. If you shoot me a DM on Twitter, I'll send you a link. Oh, I'm not telling you what to buy. I'm just saying that what I've noticed and is concerning in a shift with hardware and software, and what I've noticed them pushing and saying that is an advantage when they're causing phones to rise year over year, at like 40, 50%. And then the next year, you're gonna get the same as what you got the year before. Like, for example, when the Note 10 Plus came out, there were people trading in $1,000 phones for $600 and getting the Note 10 Plus, saying how great it was, and then they're gonna turn around and do the same thing. My concern is that these manufacturers are pushing things. It's always a loss to upgrade a highly depreciated device within 2 years. Yes. So, that's what I was talking about. I was talking about, and covering how people are out here saying that, um, it's not expensive because people are gonna trade in, and manufacturers doing these trade-in deals and then using that as reasoning for upping price because, "Oh, you get buy one, get one, or you get trade-in deals." Of course you do. But that's why I'm saying it's not really for the average person, it's for the person who, um, can afford to lose that year after year. That, um it's wiser, in my opinion, because remember, I am saying in my opinion, I'm not telling anybody what to buy. I am saying that I've noticed a shift in the S line as more of a premium and the A line becoming the more average consumer device, and also noticing how they're kind of fibbing to the consumer because everything that they're offering is not really what they're offering, it's software. And it's something you can do on old hardware, and for me, because of who I am and the channel I'm running, I'm trying to be honest and trying to motivate others to do the same thing and not be like, "This is awesome. This is awesome," "This is better than that," and things like that. It blows away the iPhone and hardware, software is subjective. Um, I have to disagree because 120 hertz has been out for over 2 years on other devices, and it's not being optimized by software. Software is only subjective in the idea that, it needs to be optimized, otherwise it doesn't matter what hardware you throw at me. That was part of the discussion earlier. Battery-wise, I can tell you for sure as someone that uses devices heavily. Like, I killed my LG G8 yesterday, 9 hours of screen on time while using other devices. The the iPhone is still the only device that I can use for 2, 3 days, getting 16, 18 hours of screen on time, heavily using it, shooting video, photos, doing all sorts of crazy things, and not have it die as easily. A lot of what people are gonna argue with me with Samsung is specs is not good if it's not optimized. A physical 5K, um, not really, not anymore. I can go buy a 5K battery for, like, literally fast charging 20,000 milliamp hour fast charging battery on eBay for, like, $30. And my concern is that part of this discussion that I had earlier was they're throwing more hardware at stuff instead of using software to fix it because they have had issues with software. If they optimize the software, they could get better battery life without putting more expensive hardware in there. And yes, I do mean an external, but I also mean that manufacturers get these for substantially cheaper, pennies on the dollar, and there have been phones that have been out with these specs for years that cost $500, and I can tell you they're making a profit. So, anyways, um, I have the iPhone 11 Pro Max. I got the maxed out one because starting to make a channel, and I had an iPhone 10 that the screen got crashed, and I got good trade-in deals. I went with that because it is um, an investment for me that I know that I'll be able to use for 5 or 6 years of software support, and the hardware will still be good, and I can use it for the production for my channel just like I built a computer. I can't build a smartphone. If I could, I would have done that. Ultimate argument against the Ultra other than pricing and depreciation is that it doesn't offer anything new truly because it's all in fluff software. None of it is actual beneficial based on literally today I went and grabbed my Note 10 Plus and took photos at 1x and 10x and cropped in 10 times, and it looks basically the same as the examples that we're seeing from these new phones. These phones does not cost an arm and a leg, but they charge. To make these phones does not cost an arm and a leg, but they charge us an arm and a leg. If the consumer continues to buy like that, they'll continue to charge like that. Exactly. So this discussion was not saying that they shouldn't buy them or we shouldn't buy them or they might not be worth it. I'm saying they're not worth it to the average consumer. The screen, 5K battery, 5G dual band, etc. are software. Um, actually, what I'm saying is that based on what they're doing and what is being utilized and what will be utilized from what we could see from current market is a lot of it is software. And even the 5G is not going to be the 5G that's going to be seen 5-6 months from now. So you're going to buy a device that you aren't even using. So the only option if you want an S-line device now is 5G in the United States. And that hardware isn't even being able to be utilized by most of the market. Also, if you want to talk about the S20 Ultra 5G, here's the problem. Unless you're on Verizon, you don't even get the best version of 5G. The Plus and Ultra and the regular all have it, but it won't be utilized. Think about 4G LTE, it's still struggling. Verizon just got roasted for basically the issues that they're having. The other thing is, why not offer LTE? Why not offer something for people? So that was my point, was that this isn't really for the average consumer. The A line is. You just said that people want to keep their phones for 2 to plus years. If so, they'll need 5G. Correct. At some point, they will. But this wasn't even a part of the discussion. This wasn't even about, like, this discussion was about the direction that they're going and seeing that hopefully the software will continue to optimize the hardware because from my experience, which goes back to using the Galaxy S3, they've yet to do that and they're starting to do that. And I was actually giving them praise for doing that earlier um, because so far other manufacturers were doing that, but Samsung was increasing price on stuff. And I was talking about uh, the issues that I've had and my concern about that continuing and hoping that they will support this for that many years. I was talking about how people want to keep their phone for 2 to 3 years, but if they don't optimize it, if they don't continue to support it with software 2 to 3 years down the road, they won't be able to keep it. 5G won't matter if their device isn't supported. Fortunately, um, Android 10 has seen a dramatic shift in time delay between software upgrades across the line. Even my G8 is on Android 10. Every single Android device I have now is on Android 10, believe it or not, with the exception of one being the Honor 8X. But my LG G8, OnePlus 7T, Note 10 Plus are all basically within the last year or two or month or two of software upgrades. So yes, it's expensive and it sucks, but I don't judge a device. I do. Um, particularly if you're trying to incentivize people into upgrading. Um, I'm was talking earlier basically about what I've noticed and how people are saying, "Oh, upgrade from last year's devices." Um, and I'm glad to see that they're putting 5G across the line. What saddens me is that they didn't offer an E series this year, and I hope that Apple continues to offer and offers an iPhone 12 this year instead of just going full 5G and full 12, 13, 14, 1500 after taxes. You're talking about close to the price of the Samsung Galaxy Fold. And I appreciate this technology. Also, Tech 702, thanks for the discussion. 5G is awesome. I'm looking forward to it, partially because all my 4G LTE devices, if more people are on 5G, in theory, if those bands are open, we should see LTE uh, bands open up and more bandwidth available so that we can actually get those speeds that we were supposed to be getting with that. Also, as someone who loves photography, the idea that I can snap a bunch of photos and have them up on my computer at home because of that bandwidth is awesome. But with that being said, someone tried to tell me that was talking about on Twitter today about comparing this to cars and things like that and talking about how um the S line this year is not meant for the average consumer, and I was just kind of was like, yeah, it's not, but it used to be. So that was my point was it used to be that they had decent price points. So even the base model had similar specs to the upper end and was a good price point. Now, with that being said, of the line, if I were to go out and get one, because of the current state of 5G and not being on Verizon, I would go with probably the Plus because there are some great trade-in values, even if you have older devices where that thing can cost you $500-$600 for the top end price of that one. You will get a majority of the same things as you get on the Ultra. Um, as far as actual physical zoom, it's one and the same. The extra zoom could potentially be software. We will have to wait and see. I'll be curious to see if there'll be any port overs and things like that. I will not be getting one of them unless, a company wants to send me one, or there is some incredible deal. Maybe 6 months from now, there will be. And with that being said, I don't have anything against Samsung. I love them. A matter of fact, it's one of my it's one of my daily use devices. This thing right here has a big, beautiful display. I'm thankful that they're putting all this hardware in it because it forces other companies to innovate, and it forces them to create software that's beneficial for it. The concern that I had was that creators pushing and saying that it's great when they haven't even got their hands on it. And when I've seen people that have gotten their hands on it being disappointed. And when I mention this, it's like, "Oh, you're wrong." So, that was just my discussion for tonight. Also, my channel is kind of shifting directions, focusing on other creators and getting them on, and also on, um, software changes because hardware, like I said, it's there, and I'm looking forward to seeing, um, more examples and to seeing, because I love watching content, and I'm grateful that people do buy this stuff that other creators do. But, for the average person, I would not recommend necessarily getting one of these, and they don't either. So, a matter of fact, the marketing says, at least in most areas of the world, the S line is not the device being pushed. We see A-line, we see Huawei and their devices, and we see mid-tier, and we see things like that. And my channel will be shifting to that. I'm hoping to get my hands on an A-line device and test that out. Maybe the A90 5G would be pretty cool to see. Hopefully, some US bands are being supported as well, because I know there are international travelers, and hopefully some of these imported devices will support that. The other bands will continue to work even if 5G is working. No, you can still get 3G. Yeah. Um, until, unless they shut off that, those bands and take away that technology, it will continue to be supported. Uh, Now, as far as what I've seen suggested is that, 2G will go away just as like 1X went away, and that 3G will be the new 2G, and basically 4G will be like the 3G, and 5G will be the new. So you'll use 5G, and then if you're on some sort of capped plan, you run out, you go down to 4G speeds. You run out of that, you go down to 3G. Um, or, you'll get pushed down to 3G from 5G just like you do right now. You get pushed down to 2G speeds when you're pushed off from 4G LTE. Um, Also, thoughts and prayers and well wishes to anybody who is dealing with the coronavirus, as I know that I have viewers that are international, and I have some people that over on my Facebook. I have a lot of people there, and people on my Twitter and stuff that are in India and other areas of the world that are being affected by this. Also, to the tech companies that are being affected by this, my thoughts go out to your family as well, and anybody else who is sick. I know that Miles has the flu today. I know that there are quite a few people that have been dealing with illness, and So my thoughts and prayers and well wishes and positive energy go out to you guys. If anybody in the chat has any questions or thoughts, please put them out there. I am going to keep this going probably till my usual 8 o'clock time, as um, I enjoy, doing this and having healthy, beneficial chat. Also, tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock EST, I will be having my second episode of Creator Interviews with Apple Monster. I also was part of a collaboration with him. If you haven't seen that video, head on over to his channel. Actually, I will do something real quick here. I'll post a link in the chat. Um, let's see. Okie dokie. Let me grab this. Share. Copy. If you haven't seen this, it was really fun. It was a collaboration video, and it was my first kind of video that I did, and it was scripted. And it was really awesome to be able to help another fellow creator, someone who's kind of come into this after I have, and I'm looking forward to continuing to do this. I know that Tech Lovin' Mama has been doing some really awesome stuff. So if you guys haven't checked out her stuff, Tech 702, Tavon Ray, Dr. Donner Walther, well, I know you've seen her stuff. Please do go check out her channel, and you can say that I sent you over there if you want. Go comment on one of her videos. I will post a link here as well in the chat to her channel. Let's see here. Tech 702. I did script because I was asked to as part of the collaboration. We wrote back and forth so we could kind of pre-plan out what was going to be discussed and the questions back and forth to each other. But I kind of went ad lib on it too and went off from it and didn't necessarily stay perfect true to exactly what I wrote, but kept mainly along the lines of it. So that was really fun to do. If anybody else ever wants to do a collab, always, of course, reach out to me. Um, I love working with other creators. Tech 702, if you're ever interested in joining me on a creator interview, I pretty much can do any day of the week and we'll make it work. Also, if you ever want to hop on stream, just let me know. Hit me up on Twitter in the DMs. I have watched you on several streams. You always are bringing in thought-provoking questions, and your interaction is great, and I really appreciate it. And also because I don't really know a ton of, I don't know everything. I won't say I do. There are some people that act like they do, and I will be honest and say that I don't. So, Tech 702, hit me up in the Twitter DM, send me a file. Hold on. Let me do this right now before I forget. Also, I have a video that will be coming out tomorrow. I've been using the CellSpot, T-Mobile CellSpot that hooks to your in-home internet and basically replicates that out through like LTE. And I'm going to be getting the other kind tomorrow that just you put one in your window and the other one goes elsewhere in your house. So, yes, I'm following you, Tech702. So, if you want to send me a DM and we can set up a time, that'd be great. You're available Saturday. What time Saturday? We'll try to make this work. I should be around. I don't think we're leaving anywhere, so just send me and we'll figure it out later. Um, evening. Okay. Saturday evening. Does we'll figure it out in the DMs later. Oh, you're PST, so you're 3 hours behind me. So okay, we'll make something work. Um, you had one of those when you were with T-Mobile. They sucked back then. I know that they work a lot better now. They made some improvements as far as like the bands that they support and how they work. And also I know that if you have a smaller house, it can be issues because they work better by being farther apart. It's part of like the boosting technology as far as from what I've seen. The other thing I'm really looking forward to with this is that this is going to sound really bad, but when it comes to finding videos on this topic, it's pretty well crap on T-Mobile, as far as YouTube is concerned. There isn't a lot covering, um, really set up how well they use before and after. They leave out the important details. It's the same thing with the T-Mobile, excuse me, sync drive. On mine, there really isn't a lot of like, oh, this is the speeds you should expect. And I know that varies, but I know that that varies based on a few different things. But I do know that I get like, it's not super fast, but I'll get 22 down and like 10 up in our bedroom. But that's not by even by putting my phone by the window. So what I'm gonna do is walk around the house and put one of those out and see how well it goes. So cool. Yeah. Um so we'll make it work. It'll be fun. I like having, getting to know other creators, things like that. I know that our interaction has been awesome on Twitter, and I've been really enjoying seeing you on other streams and things like that. And I'm gonna make sure I'm subscribed to you over on YouTube. They've been cutting things off, so there we go. I'll be your 96 subscriber, Tech702. So there you go. I can also subscribe to my other channel, get you closer to that 100. Um, Here we go. Actually, let me do this. If you are in the chat and not subscribed to Tech702, please copy the link and go and subscribe to him over on YouTube. Also, if you're not following him on Twitter, go do so. He is very, 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 very super smart. I would say so. He brings something refreshing to the market. He knows quite a bit from what I've kind of absorbed or figured about carriers. And he also puts his life let's put this way, puts his life at risk quite often for people in emergency situations. So thank you for your service as well. So hey, it's true, you do. from what I've seen when you talk about EMT and fire and things like that. So uh, I'm always grateful for the people that put their life at risk. Whether it's directly for me or in other areas of the nation, and for the firefighters, the police department, military, everybody. So hey, Miles, what's up, dude? Um, you must have heard me say your name because I said something about sending prayers out for you and positive energy for you having your flu. So, anyways, if anybody wants to hop in or anybody has anything they wanted to discuss, I'd be more than willing to do so. Let me look up something real quick here. I want to pull up something real quick. Couple things actually. You're certified IT MS Tech, 18 years DoD experience, Iraq vet, firefighter, and network builder. Wow. That is crazy cool. I appreciate all that. Even though about half of that, I'm not sure if I know what that means, but you own a social media app, which I won't plug because I'm a silent investor. Oh, probably conflict of interest. Okay. Apple Monster. Shoot, where did Twitter go? Oh, here we go. Silence is deadly. Silence can be deadly in these things. Hopefully I don't lose anybody, but we'll see. Kidoke. There we go. I'm gonna share part of my screen real quick here. So here are some of kind of the leaked stuff about the P40 Pro, and man, oh man, does it look beautiful. Let me go to Tech Radar. You know what? Actually, where was that? Yeah, let me go check out Tech Radar here, and we'll look at this. So yeah, it still has the little teardrop like notch, but it's for what it's got on the inside. From what I've seen with like the Mate 30 Pro, the P30 Pro, and their cameras, and for competing with the S20 and the up and coming iPhone 12 later this year, I'm pretty excited about that. Hey, Jason, the guy I keep trying to get to show his face. I won't harp on you for it, I promise. Although maybe I should, Um, so this is set to be released late March 2020, and maybe a little bit more expensive than the P30 Pro. Around $1,200 to $1,300, which, yes, is pretty pricey, but that's based on conversion, and we don't know how accurate that will be. Also, keep in mind that they typically only do like one capacity. How can these phones work here when they got banned? So you can sideload if you take about 5 minutes the Google Play Store if you choose to. And I know that they work pretty well with T-Mobile. and AT&T. So we'll see that. Oh, there you are. Hey, dude. Hold on just a second. I'll bring you in just a second here. Hey, Apple Monster. What's up? What's up?
Hey, what's up, man?
I'm just kind of talking about the P40 Pro here and the leaks on that. And just answering this question here. How can these they work if you want to tinker, basically. If you know how to just sideload, which as far as that is concerned, it's basically installing APK because they didn't prohibit them from having the Google services in the background. They just prohibited them from installing the Play Store itself. Basically, was the way that Huawei is getting around this is they're including the background stuff that you need for the most part, and then you just sideload the Play Store. So let's see here. And then this is another device that I think is pretty awesome. The Xiaomi Mi 10 and Mi 10 Pro, which will have the 108 megapixel sensor and the Snapdragon 865, just like the S20 series, but will be about half the price. So I know that Xiaomi used to have issues with coverage in the area, and when I tried them with AT&T and T-Mobile before, they were kind of a wreck. But with newer bands and improved bands and 5G coming into play,
That looks like a nice phone.
do believe that it's a 6.67-inch AMOLED, full HD. It is only going to support 90 hertz with 180 hertz touch sampling, but it's going to be up to 1200 nits with 4096 levels of brightness and DC dimming, which is something that we've seen. Basically, that comes from like the OnePlus 7T. So the device I endorse that they make is the Mi Android TV box. Better off with an Android 10, an iPhone 10R, honestly. Yeah. So that's where I'm gonna kind of start to see that people are gonna start going when these companies are only offering 5G is if they're in a market that doesn't offer 5G. And that's why I'm glad to see that Samsung and Apple continue to offer previous generation devices at the price points that they do, because
Oh yeah, definitely.
you have this stuff and it's great to have, like, for example, the regular Mi 10 is going to have a larger battery than the Mi 10 Pro, but the Mi 10 Pro is going to offer 50-watt wired charging now and 30-watt wireless charging, along with 10-watt reverse wireless charging.
Ooh.
Where the Mi 10 only offers 30-watt wired charging, it still retains the wire, which is funny because it still retains the same speed of wireless charging. Literally, the Mi 10 will be able to charge wirelessly and wired at the same speeds. The 10 Pro will be able to charge 40% faster. They're both coming with UFS 3.0 storage, which can go up to 2,900 megabyte per second speeds. As far as pricing, You're looking at anywhere from 715 up to about $850 on the Pro model, and on the regular model, let's see, 550 to $675. So that's that'll be interesting to see where that goes. Just a couple things that I noticed today that people haven't really covered a ton, so wanted to throw those in there and see how people kind of felt about those. And so, what about the A series from Samsung? Yeah, so they're actually heading into some interesting territory with that, heading into the 5G market with the A90 5G model, around $800, which is crazy for an A line, but I don't know.
Tech 702. Thanks for watching my video earlier, by the way.
I take the Pixel over it. Pixel can't compete with the Galaxy S, but is much superior to the A models due to software experience. I agree. Even the 3A XL is up there. And now on T-Mobile, check this out. So of course, just after I got the OnePlus 7T, which I do not regret by any means, they dropped the price on the Pixel 4 and Pixel 4 XL to half.
Wow.
$399 and $499 for those. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's like, I wouldn't get the 4. I would pay the extra $100 and then whatever, like $50 more to get the higher capacity of the 4XL. But that being said, also with payments and stuff like that, that makes it even more so for people. The only problem is that's only on T-Mobile, I believe, that they did that. So
that's weird.
At this pace, phones will come with generators to charge the phone for optimized speed.
Yeah.
Something you may not have considered as people migrate to 5G, LTE will open and perform much better. So a budget LTE phone could be excellent with Pixel A. That's true. That's actually what I kind of was getting into earlier about why I can't wait for 5G, because then people can get off my LTE. You can have that 5G. You can use that ridiculous speeds that you don't need, so you can download Netflix super fast when you're out and about. And even when you do need it, you can use it. And you can use it for things like web browsing and doing the things that the typical consumer does. Hopefully, we'll see the upload speeds. That's where I want 5G. That's where I want 5G. Like, I would love to be able to set a hotspot in my house and have like I would love to be able to do 4K. Oh, okay, hold on.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Boy.
I know his sense of humor. He's messing with me. I can tell already. But anyways, I would love to be able to set a 5G hotspot in my house, have unlimited 5G speeds, and be able to upload a video and not have it take forever.
Yeah.
And have it in 4K if I want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because 4K, even though most people probably watch my content on their phones and stuff, it's nice to be able to have it out there, especially because
Absolutely.
YouTube compression. Hey, you took my advice. I see it. I see it.
What is it?
You put something over the light.
I was about to tell you, but then yeah, I did. And let me know what you think once you watch my video. I think I think it looks better than my previous videos.
Maybe better speed for most LTE users that don't apply to AT&T. Yeah, that's what the crazy thing is. The other day, I was out and about on T-Mobile,
Mhm.
and guess what? I got 50 meg up speeds.
Oh wow!
Upload. I was like, what the heck? Like, I get that like, okay, so that's not the best speeds I've had. Like, I had Verizon prepaid at one point and got 180 up or 180 down and like 65 up in the basement of a hospital, but that's because they have those boosters.
Yeah,
But still, that was crazy.
yeah. That's still pretty good though. Yeah.
But what I'm looking forward to that's coming tomorrow is I'm going to be doing a comparison of um the current T-Mobile booster that I have that just works off from your network that plugs into your router to
Oh,
the one of
cool.
those that goes into your window and then boosts it with like a secondary.
Oh,
And then
that's
I'm
cool.
gonna be sending back the one that works in home because actually around here I get faster upload speeds on LTE than we do with in home. And since I have
Mm,
unlimited on T-Mobile, I want to start testing that and doing some uploads over LTE because
that's
I
awesome.
get double to 3 times the speeds. I get like 3 to 5 on in home here, and I get anywhere from like I get around 10 on LTE. So I'm gonna try that. Plus, if I do some streams, I want to experiment with doing streaming at home to begin with.
Mm,
So that way, if I'm out and about, I can kind of see, okay, if I have this speed, what would it be like for streaming and things like that. So, um, and I want to do carrier review because T-Mobile has really started to shift. So I want to do it from the perspective of somebody who's living in the market where their service was kind of crap like 6 months ago to pretty good now. So um,
oh, that's awesome.
throwback to CRT days. Actually, there are gamers that still use CRT TVs because of how they work. And technically speaking, they don't have a refresh rate like typical TVs do. So people will actually plug their computers into CRTs and game on them because there's actually less lag than some of,
Mm.
unless you're paying for super expensive. You just don't get the resolution. But any death threats today, Jason? No, I haven't threatened him yet. Stop picking on me for that. I'm just kidding. Jason knows. He knows. It's all love here. So it'll be interesting to see though.
Yeah, definitely.
Latency is a huge thing too, I've noticed. Like
Yeah.
20 to 25 millisecond latency over LTE around here inside versus like 75 on in-home internet. So, um my channel might take an interesting direction and literally go fully mobile.
That's awesome, man.
Like using it for some streams and for uploads and testing to see if T-Mobile eventually shuts me off
Yeah.
or throttles. And if they do, I'll just swap sims and keep going. Because I have a A10E that was because when I switched over, you have to get a different device.
Mm,
When you switch over, they make you get a new device if you're doing the where they're going to pay off your old line or whatever. So I just got the free device. But that also gives me a SIM card. So I could always buy like a used device or even put that in like a if I'm in an area because they will throttle at 50 gigs in high density areas. So technically I could just swap the SIM card if that were to happen. But
yeah, true.
go Verizon.
Oh,
Yeah, if you can afford it.
yeah, I was gonna say.
Um Our bill literally was
I
literally twice what it is now with fewer devices on it. We had
yeah.
2 phones and 2 smartwatches, and our bill was like $500 a month almost.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I even told you about that. We had to change because our bill just kept getting higher and higher, and it was just like, we can't do this, you know?
$360 a month, that's not bad. It depends on the device. But like what was bad was
Ours,
I had one device that was device payments, one phone
hmm
and 2 watches. The rest, and I was getting a deal for having more than 3 lines because the watches were on there, so I was getting like $35 off for that.
oh, damn.
So,
Uh,
um,
we,
yeah.
we were actually paying for a tablet that I got back, I gotta say 3 years ago. And now this was 2 years after. And my mom had said, hey, I think we're done paying for the tablet. So, that's good, whatever. And then we got, it was like probably a year later, and we got um our bill again, and it said, oh, we upped you like, I don't know, like $60. And we're like, why the heck did this happen? So we noticed that they never canceled the tablet when we wanted them to. So we were still paying for the tablet. So now, yeah. So now I was like, okay. Um, well, a couple months later, tablet's gone, and we're paying for our phones, which was, I think at the time, 220, 230. It upped to 260. And I'm like, my mom's like, what the heck? It was so low, and now all of a sudden it boosted up so much. So
Uh,
then she got another bill, like, I think she gets it like 2-3 weeks apart. She gets another bill, and it's like $20 higher than the last one. And we're like, what is this? So we ended up, my brother-in-law switched to Cricket, as I was telling you before, and he's like, yeah, $90 a month, free data, free everything, and that's what we're doing. But it's amazing how companies will go crazy on you and hire the bill every single month, and it's like, why? If it was one price one month, why wouldn't it be the same the other month? Plus, we never got any more devices or changed our plan, so it just
yeah.
didn't make sense.
We had a situation with them where basically I contacted them because we were going to switch over to AT&T because it was going to be cheaper, and it was for a
Yeah.
while, and we were able to get unlimited data and stuff, and AT&T paid off our old lines, gave us $650 a piece. Basically, they just send you a card and then you use that to pay off your old line, and then whatever the difference between the old line and the 650 you could keep.
Oh wow.
Which is different than like T-Mobile just gives you like whatever the value of your new trade-in is.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Like they'll give you whatever you're owed. Basically, they take what you're owed to your old carrier, subtract what you get for your trade-in, and that's what you're sent on the card. And they'll do up to 650, but they don't just give you 650 and say you go pay off your old and then you get to keep the. That's what AT&T did. But here's what happened then.
Wow.
We went to Verizon. Took forever to send the final bill so we could submit that to AT&T, to the point where Verizon then came after us with creditors because it takes 8 weeks to get that sent through. I ended up harping on Verizon, they ended up finally sending things through. So we just said, well, if Verizon is still going to send us to the creditors, we're just going to pay them 1 month at a time. And we paid them like $150 a month. And then we just used the card to do that for a few months and then use the other to pay towards our new bill. So we weren't paying on either bill for a few months. And then finished. And that wasn't even supposed to happen, because here's what was supposed to happen. We still had our Apple Watches that we hadn't switched over. Technically, when I talked to Verizon, this is what they claimed, and I should have had another person check into it. But they claimed that because our Apple Watches were cellular, that we technically should have still had lines underneath them, and they shouldn't have been able to cut us off and make us pay the whole everything that was owed and like cut off our plan and stuff. But they did.
Yeah.
Because apparently,
wow, that's insane.
Apparently, a couple people, even when we signed up, the person that we signed up with said, and somebody else said, oh, the Apple Watch is considered a separate line. Well, apparently not if it's your only lines left. That's where they got it. If I had known that, I would have gone out and bought like a $20 phone, put one of my Verizon SIMs in it, dropped it down to the lowest possible plan I could, so I could take our other ones away, and then finished.
Yeah, exactly.
And then AT&T was great until they started upping prices on stuff to. So then what happened was we had unlimited with them. Then I decided, well, we're not really using that data, so I'm going to drop down to the 10 gig plan. Mistake. Because then when I tried to go back to the unlimited, because we were traveling more and stuff, they had not only increased the cost of the plan by $20 a month, but phones went from being $20 for actually originally it was $20 a month for line access fees if you were on data plans that were like 3, 9, 10 gig. But it was actually cheaper if you were on unlimited. It was like $15. Now it's $20 a line for line access fees on specified data allotments, and it's $35 or $40 for line access fees on the unlimited. So literally the plan doubled because we had 4 lines. Literally it doubled. Actually, we had 7 lines in total, so that was going to be like $245. No, 200. Let's see, 5 phones, 35, $175 more a month.
Wow.
Just for the plan part, because we had 5 phone lines, and those were going to be those are going to be that's wrong. 30. Yeah. Those are going to be $35 more a month per line for that. So I said, fine, we're going to go to T-Mobile and see what we can switch over, and they'll buy out. And basically, AT&T, we're just going to pay them per month. They suspended our account today because they messed things up when we switched and caused it, instead of switching my IMEI over for my iPhone 10, they did it with one of the 11 Pro Maxes, which put between that and $200 for one other phone, about $1,500 that we would have to pay them, which we don't have to do right now. So they basically suspended our account, and then we'll pay them in payments over time, which I guess is a good thing because it means it won't stack up, and we're not using AT&T's plan anyways.
Yeah, true.
The only thing is it might hit credit, but our credit's already kind of junk anyway. So I'm so happy with T-Mobile, though. I got to tell you, man. Any issues I had, like I call them, and they have somebody that's like 30. Literally, they're working 35 miles from here.
Oh wow!
Like they're in like Grand Rapids working, which is only like 35 miles from me. So and they personally handled it, got it taken care of. And the issue was we had switched the account from my wife to me, and when they did that, they messed things up. And
Tech Loving
they
Mom is in the chat. What's up?
yeah, that just said hello to her. They're so what was I say? Oh, so yeah, when they switched things over, it was supposed to switch device payments and everything, the payment agreements and everything under my name.
Yeah.
And close out the account under her name. Well, apparently, instead of doing that, it closed them out under her name, making it look like we were going to have to pay. So that was like $400 and some on that Pixel 3a XL, and another. So it was like $600. So I'm like, no. It's like I already paid the bill from January to February because we joined them in January. I don't owe again till March. So I called them and they literally fixed everything, switched everything up. So her account basically is closed out. There's no bill on that. Everything's over on mine. There's no concern of it like getting any device getting like the IMEI blacklisted and not working. So, no issue of like her being on her way to work and her phone stops working.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because where she works, her phone is her only access. She don't have Wi-Fi access or anything there. So for like her to contact me and let me know when she's on her way home or if she has any car issues, that's her access. So they got that all figured out like within 15 minutes. And it was great. And they could see like what I had done with the chat, like what I had already talked about. So I didn't have to repeat myself because I've had to do that before. AT&T, I had to repeat myself, no kidding, 25 times one time. I kept track because they don't apparently share the chats like that.
Wow.
And then I called them. So I had to repeat myself on chat like 10 times. And then I called them. They kept bouncing me back and forth. So I'm super happy. Yeah, there's some spots in our house that are like low. They're not dead. They were at first, but that's because they were doing some work on towers. But they fixed that since. And they're sending me this. They sent me the one out for free. They sent, they could have charged $25 fee, like a
yeah.
Oh, they sent it out, the original one out for free, and they're sending me this other one for free without putting like a preemptive charge and saying, "Oh, we'll give it back to you once you send the old one back." So I have two devices that are like $700 in value. That like,
wow.
They're just gonna be, Razer versus Z Flip. Can I give my opinion on it? Sure. Yeah, I can. Tech 702. I answered your question. Yes, I can. No, I'm not gonna be. I'm not gonna be like that. That's the question he asked, but I'm not gonna do that.
Good one.
Can you answer? Give your opinion on the? Yes, I can. That's my answer. Next. No, just kidding. That's the politician's way of doing things, unfortunately. Man,
Yeah,
I spent way too many times with people in classes that were like that. Like, so as far as that goes, the simple thing is they're both expensive. They both offer something different. And I can't get either one of them because my carrier doesn't offer it.
Tech 702, smart ass.
Hey, if you think my ass is smart, you should see what happens when I use my brain. Anyways,
oh, that's awesome.
So yes, price wise, the Flip is better option. You get more money for your money. True, because you get better, newer specs and things like that. It just depends on what your Verizon is supporting both. Well, considering the situation with Verizon, we don't qualify with them for a little while. So yeah. So unless I go buy it outright and figure out a way to get the eSIM to work on prepaid, I'm kind of SOL on that. But yeah, they do the Flip. I would get the Flip. Not only because it's cheaper, but I know that the specs, I know that the processor is going to be supported for much longer, and I don't have much confidence in she's always spot on. Yeah, it's basically an S10. But I don't have much confidence in Motorola and updates necessarily. That's my concern. It's cool. You get the Moto actions where you can chop to do the camera, you can twist or chop to do the flashlight, you can twist to do the camera. That stuff's cool. But I do wish it had a larger display on the outside, just that you could utilize for like responding to certain things. Because what would be really cool is, and maybe if Google, if Google did a Pixel Flip or whatever they would call it, they would totally put that new Google, they would totally put the Google Assistant in dark mode on the outside of that thing. So you could say the key phrase, wake it up, look on the screen, send a text, respond to an email, make a call, do whatever, and be good to go.
Yeah.
Like that's what I would like to see Google or to see a company do. In all honesty, and people are going to hate me for this next comment, but whatever. I actually wish that, oh my gosh, Jason. Anyways, I wish that they would have kept Bixby or had a Bixby button on there, or like a Google Assistant button just for that purpose.
Yeah.
Oh no. So
now I made
so I got a funny story for you real quick.
Okay.
Last night I'm talking to my wife. We're laying up in bed and I'm talking to her and we're talking about phones. And I keep saying the A series, talking about Google, and my iPhone keeps going off because it's syncing. I'm saying, hey. It just did it again.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyways, that happened.
Jeez. That's awesome. So I gave my opinion on my video, which I hope you guys will go watch after the stream. But I wanted to ask you, Michael.
Hold on just a sec. So Tech 702, yeah, go check out. There's a video that Apple Monster and I did. I posted the link in the chat. I will post it in the description afterwards, where we actually talked about the Flip and the Razr and our thoughts on the future of tech and stuff. But I will answer your question real quick and say, basically, the Razr has the advantage with the outer screen, but Samsung has the advantage of the internals and newer and better when it comes to like cameras and stuff from what I've seen. So sorry, what were you saying?
No, it's okay. I made my own video talking a little bit about my opinion, but I wanted to know your opinion if Apple were to make a flip phone, like the one that just came out with Samsung. What do you think that would be like? And would you buy something like that?
So, first of all, I think it would be very similar, but I think that as trash as people call Siri, which I kind of have to disagree on because I've actually been having more issues with Google than I've had with Siri, like trying to
Mm.
turn off the lights in my room and stuff, and it just is like, this device is not connected. Please try again, or please connect
Oh,
from your phone or
jeez.
whatever. Or like every device thinking I'm talking to it. Where with Siri, typically if you're in a room, like if I'm in a room and say the key phrase, whatever phone is in my hand triggers, but my iPad, my wife's phone, other does not.
Really?
Yeah. So there's two reasons for that. For one, my wife and I don't sound the same as much as people want to pick on my voice.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also it uses the sensors and sees I'm holding that device. So respond from that. Now if I was holding my iPad at the same
Yeah.
time, it would probably trigger both. Since I'm
Right.
signed in on
Yeah.
both, um so they'll probably go from an 8-inch to a 4-inch. That's true. I can see um, where they have an advantage, and people are actually talking about this earlier and saying, well, iOS doesn't really have anything for flip phones. iOS, though, has developed more and more to the point where um, it
I mean,
it
it,
intelligently understands the size of the display you're using
yeah.
and adjusts for it. So
Yeah.
really the
Yeah.
only difference with iOS on iPhone and iPad is that iPad has the extras for being able to swipe in the apps and things like that. And there's a few extra things they throw in there. But as far as
Yeah.
display wise, it understands the size of the display you're using. That's why iPad OS can work on a iPad mini and full size.
Mm-hmm.
Um and you know, um they're getting better when it comes to allowing widgets and things like that, and they're getting better with notifications and improvements.
Definitely.
There is issues, um, but I think part of that actually was that some of the stuff that they threw in with the newer iPhones actually caused an issue that Apple hadn't had in a long time, and they are fixing it. And it was that they actually needed the RAM for multitasking, and they needed the RAM for processing.
Yeah.
And they're fixing that with software updates, but
Yeah. I think it's not. Jason C is saying Siri is worse than Cortana, which, I
it's
mean,
true. I've used Cortana,
yeah.
and actually Cortana is great for the things that it does, just like Siri is. But here's actually something I pointed out earlier today
I
that
I
where
just want to
Siri
say
has the
this, right?
advantage though is shortcuts. Siri shortcuts is
Yeah.
huge. Like I can
Yeah.
trigger, I can do things with that Siri doesn't natively support, where Google
Mm-hmm.
has no option. Like if Google Assistant doesn't support something, it just doesn't support it. There's no like
Yeah.
you can do IFTT and you can trigger something to do ways around it, but it's not like directly integrated with Google Assistant. Now they support a lot, but there's still certain things that doesn't. Like for example, I can say hey SIRI and play such and such song on Spotify and it will do it.
Yes.
And there's other
Yes.
integrations that they're in Pandora and things like that. Google can do it, but there's been many a times that it will be like, you are not subscribed for that. Please, because they want you to have premium. You can't just
Yeah.
have the basic. So there's struggles like our lights disconnected and I couldn't get them to reconnect because um they were trying to connect to the internet and all my phones use 5G and they only support 2.4 gigahertz. All my phones
Mm-hmm.
use 5 gigahertz. And basically, Google was struggling to force them to connect to the 2.4 gigahertz band.
Yeah.
And I finally got it to work. I just finally said, forget about it. I'm not using the Google app and went and used it with a different app and got it to work. So,
I mean, I gotta say, yes, there's better things out there. But for what it was, I think Siri's come a long way.
It the fact that it's on my watch and responds as fast as it does, and like the accuracy for
My point
phrasing
exactly.
has been crazy. Like it
My point
learned
exactly.
it learned my son's name is spelled Zander and not Xander, and Google still hasn't figured that out.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to put it in a contact. Because Google will
Oh
figure it out
wow.
if you put it in a contact. It will figure out the correct spelling. Or if you correct it and say, no, that's Zander, it will do. Siri just figured it out because it figured
Yeah.
it out from me going in and correcting it in the text.
One thing that I love that you can now do with Siri, and this has been for a while now, but you can actually have her. You can, like, let's say you had a contact on your phone that she didn't know how to pronounce correctly. You can actually ask her to pronounce it the way it's actually pronounced. Like I had a friend um, that I would say, "Hey, call this person," and it would say it a complete other way, and it was like, "No, this is how you say it." Like, I
So,
mean, I understand that at one point she was a robot, and now they're fixing it to where she sounds more human. Um, but just those little things,
here's
they're improvements,
here's the other.
and also like saying jokes. My nephews will my nephews like to go on their Google Home, that screen thing that they have now,
Yeah,
and
the
they
hub.
love asking to tell jokes and stuff, and the same thing with my phone. And yes, I think that the jokes that Siri says are a little odd, but I think that they're getting better with that.
They
You know,
are. A matter of fact, hold on. Tell me a joke.
This one's for the kids. How do you put a baby astronaut to sleep? You rock it?
I don't know if you heard that or not. It said, "How do you
no.
put a baby astronaut to sleep? You rock it." Anyways,
See,
that shows how
see.
good my microphone is, though, because it was to the side. It didn't pick it up. But
Oh
anyways,
yeah.
so this kind of strayed from the question, though. So how would Apple do it? I would see them doing something very similar to Samsung, but um, taking advantage of being able to use Siri and like other AI stuff.
Yeah.
Because so the Flip has two cameras on the back and like one on the front or whatever. So what I would
Hold
see
that
is
thought. I'll be right back.
okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
No assistant understands you. Yeah, it's interesting because the way these AIs are, they're getting okay. So it's funny because talking about accents and AI and stuff and the assistances, they actually do start to learn um our voices better and things like that. And Google has a hard time with my wife's voice because she doesn't use Google Assistant as much as I do. Like I use it way more often than and so it understands my voice because it's learned it, but when she doesn't use it on a daily basis because she just uses an iPhone and she doesn't really use it on there, that's when it
Mm.
struggles. And then when there's like an update and you have to re-establish that connection is when it struggles. So I'll just have her go in on her phone, on Google Assistant on her iPhone, and relearn it.
Right. Yeah.
Um, let's see here. Apple will never do a fold or a flip. They would murder the iPad line, and I believe Apple is pushing the iPad as a computer replacement. I don't know about that though, because we thought they would never go with a phone larger than 4.7 inches, and that they would
Yeah,
never
exactly.
do a stylus. They did the Apple Pencil. Now the smallest iPhone is 5.5 or 5.85 inches.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah, Apple's coming a long way, you know. I just think that, yeah, it's, Android is more advanced. Android does things faster than Apple, um, but nonetheless, it's still good. You know what I mean? I mean, it's different. Yeah, what do you expect? You don't want every company to do the same thing and have every phone be the same way. That's just going to be boring, and there's no competition, and there wouldn't be people like us talking about it. You know,
so I would
if every phone were the same, we wouldn't be able to have a conversation and hold our own thoughts about certain things.
true. So as far as if Apple were to do it, since we already know that they kind of took a while to add more cameras, they took a while to go from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3.
Yeah.
But when they did, what they worked with at the time was actually pretty good for what they were able to do with it. I mean, the Pixel
Yeah,
does a little
absolutely.
better, and now that they've improved upon it, a lot of what they do still only uses 2 lenses, and the third one is there because there's just certain things you can't supplement with lenses. But what I would see them doing is putting the 3 lenses, basically the iPhone 11 Pro Max or Pro Max, in a flip
Mhm.
phone form, and maybe even only with 2 lenses.
Right.
Because telephoto, basically most telephoto on smartphones anymore is software driven anyways. It uses the primary lens and
Yeah.
goes in unless you have perfect light. So I could see them doing something like that, like um maybe doing 48 megapixel and 64 megapixel sensor,
Hmm.
and then using the 48 megapixel, using pixel binning for those, so you'd actually would have the equivalent of like a 12 and 16 megapixel. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um and have a good night, Tech 702. I'll be looking for that DM for you, and I'll see you Saturday hopefully. um
Awesome.
but as far as that goes, I don't know how they would approach it, because Apple typically doesn't put out a device necessarily that acts as another one. They put something in the middle. Like when they announced the
Yeah.
iPhone, it's an iPod, it's a phone, right?
Right.
It was
Yeah.
sort of a
Yeah.
replacement, but it was kind of in the middle. When the iPad was announced, though, it was, we have the iPhone, we have the iPod Touch, we have the MacBook Air, the
Hmm.
MacBook Pro, we have the desktops, but they needed a middle device, so they came out with the iPad. The
Right.
Flip and the Fold fit nowhere. They're a blend between 2 devices. And if they're done right, they're great. When they're not, you end up with a very expensive device that people are selling for half its price on eBay.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
or trying to sell for 3 times its price on eBay. So
Right. Yeah.
that's my concern, is that it would more likely be a flop than a flip. Let's just put it that way.
Mm. Mm.
Like, that would not be a very good
I.
implementation, because how would they explain it? Because would they say, we've created something that's a really good iPhone and iPad,
Mm.
and for those people that want both, now you can carry one? And so here's the thing. if Apple did it because their iPad OS is quite good, like there's really not much competition. Samsung has started competing. Like their Tab S6 is pretty great, like with DeX
Yeah.
and stuff, and some of the modes they've added, things that are actually very similar to like Apple did with slide over and some of the pop-up view and things like that for multitasking. It's very similar. But here's where I could see Apple pitching it. They could sell this thing for $2,000
Mhm.
with 5G, have one option or two options. Like let's say this thing starts at $1,800. They give you 512 gigs. Then for another $300, they double that to a terabyte. You have two options. That's it. It's 5G. It's an iPad. It has 120 hertz refresh display. It's now using OLED. It's using folding technology like they're putting on the Flip that they're going to probably put in the next Fold. They'll be able to do the higher, because they already did high refresh rates
Yeah.
on their
Yeah.
LCD, and companies are offering this in OLED. They'll put it in there, and you'll actually get a heck of a lot for that, because that's cheaper than buying an iPhone and an iPad that's half that. Like to buy a 256 iPhone and 256 iPad is going to cost you well over $2,000, even over probably close. You're looking at close to 20. Well, it's going to be close to $2,000 easily, and they could pitch it as, you've been telling us all along that you want multitasking on your iPhone. Now, guess what? When you want it, flip it open, and you have a tablet that has multitasking. But when it's closed and it's working like an iPhone, it just works like an iPhone. They've already developed that separation and made people kind of look to say, if you want multitasking, you're going to have to have an iPad. If you want to do multiple apps at the same time, picture in picture, you're going to have a tablet. If you have an iPhone, you can just swipe back and forth. That's already developed.
Yeah.
That's perfect development for a device like the Galaxy Fold, or something that like is more like the size of my LG G8. So it'd be like the size of like an iPhone 8 when it's closed, but fold screen, and then it flips open and it's like the size of an iPad mini.
Right.
Like I'm talking about width wise, it would be taller.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it wouldn't be super chunky. Like it might be the size of like kind of like my Note 10. So you got a nice, decent, it's not like 21 by 9 or whatever. It's 19.5 by 9 or whatever, something like that. And then it folds open and you have something, because literally I have my notes sitting on top of my iPad right now. And it's like a third of the size of the iPad. So if it were to flip open and double in size, that's like the size of the iPad mini, because I have the 9.7-inch iPad Pro. So literally that would be just about that size. But here's the thing. If they did that, now that you have this folding glass, I could see them doing it because the iPad has the Apple Pencil. And they wouldn't want to create this without that support, because now every iPad, the iPad mini, the iPad Pros, all the iPad Air, all support the Apple Pencil now. So that's where I could see it working, because that's what a lot of people have said that they wanted with the Samsung, was they wanted to be able to use it like the Note.
So. I could see I could see Apple making a foldable iPad. I don't know how much people would like a foldable phone. I mean, yeah, it's become a trend and everything, but maybe starting with the iPad, I think people would like it more just because, a lot of people are working with the iPad to do different projects for school and stuff. I think that would be a better alternative than carrying, like, let's say, the MacBook. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and if you think about
I
it,
mean,
they do these
and I,
duplication devices all the time because they have like the MacBook Air, which is like
yeah,
the light version of the MacBook.
yeah,
So
yeah,
this would be an in between. It also offers more than like an iPad. So this would be, it offers
right,
more than an iPhone, but not quite as much as a full-on iPad. And
right,
you'd
right.
have, well, and then the other thing they could do is put USB-C on it, so everybody would get their device that's smaller, like an iPhone that has USB-C on it, opens up to it like an iPad, because iPads all have USB-C on them. The other thing is they could
Right.
do wireless charging, so you'd have the first device that is both and offers the
Yeah.
charging type that people have wanted on iPhones for the longest time when it's used like a phone, but offers wireless charging. So you'd have a device that could be used like an iPad that's also wireless charge. Plus, their
Mm.
iPads are super thin now.
Oh yeah.
So, and their
Oh
phone,
yeah.
the iPhone is thick enough that if you had a device halfway between, I could see it easily. And the battery life.
Right.
So
Yeah.
think about this. I still get anywhere from like 11 to 13 hours of screen on time on my iPad, depending on what I'm doing, with it being that old of a device. You're thinking about,
Yeah.
I have the original 9.7-inch iPad Pro. So that's what, from 2013, 7 years old.
Yeah.
2013, 2014, something like that. So 6, 7 years old.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I still get that decent. My Pro Max, I'll get like 16 to 18 hours of screen on time.
Oh wow.
So you could have a device that's thin enough, and it wouldn't have to have that much bigger of a battery than my iPhone does, and you would still be able to offer 12 to 14 hours of screen on time when it's used as a tablet.
Yeah.
And then when you close it and the other part of the screen that's not being used shuts off, you'd be getting like 20 hours on that thing as a phone. Like,
Yeah. True. Yeah. Yeah.
and even if that was split in half because of high refresh rates and things like that, and because it has to have the outputting processing power so that when you do open it up, it's already able to flip to that real quick,
Mhm.
able to be sitting ready and being like, oh, you flipped it open and everything spread to that. It's still 10 hours of screen on time for something like that would be crazy good.
Yeah.
And given that it would be
Definitely.
and given that this device is probably 2 years out,
Right.
by then, who knows? The iPhone 13 Pro Max or whatever it's going to be called that year is probably going to have like 23 hours of screen on time or something ridiculous.
Yeah. Definitely.
Or it will still have 16 to 18 hours of screen on time, but it will have higher refresh rate and we'll have 5G in there by then. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing what Apple does this year.
Yeah. I can't wait. We're supposed to be seeing a March event as well.
I wonder if that still will happen though because of the coronavirus stuff, and
I don't
the
know.
shops are closed down and they're struggling to get back up to 50% production to keep up with iPhone, like
Oh shoot.
to produce the iPhone 11s.
Damn. I didn't know
So
that.
yeah, they're it's not good. That's
Yeah, and didn't they cancel another event? I've been hearing
yeah.
over Twitter.
Mobile World Congress was canceled yesterday. So
Damn.
it'll be interesting to see though. But here's what I have to say about that. If Apple just keeps doing what they're doing, people will complain about it, but at the same time, people will buy it because it will be cheaper than the S line, and they'll still get
Yeah.
the top of the end Apple. Like if Apple just keeps the 3 cameras, they keep
Mhm.
the notch, they add more of a processor, they add 5G, and that's and they increase RAM so you get 6 gigs of RAM or 8 gigs of RAM or whatever. Probably gonna go to 6 this year.
Mhm.
Bump up the cameras maybe a little bit so that they don't even need to do that. Apple has been the ones that for the longest time they were at 8 megapixels when everybody else was switching to 12. Now they're at 12 on all of them, and then what they do with that 12 megapixels is crazy. The only
Right. Yeah.
thing that I would say about going to at least a 32 megapixel sensor on one of the sensors is 8 megapixel still you can pull from 4K video. If they had 16 megapixels, actually 16 would be good. Then you would be able to zoom in and still pull a still.
Mhm.
Yeah, John Presser says the SE2 is ready to go. I've heard that. There's actually been manufacturer leaks from case manufacturers that have already been putting out cases available for the iPhone 9 or whatever they're going to call it, or the SE2. Spigen,
I'm really hoping that they do SE2. Honestly.
Spigen, Spigen. If you look
Yeah.
at them, I don't want to get in trouble, but I got a little insight from looking around and snooping. Nothing that you can't just easily find, but they basically says that's ready to go. They already
Oh,
have
that's pretty cool.
them in production. They're actually going to look better than what we think.
Oh.
So yeah, I can't. So I don't want to share pages because I don't know what sites are allowed to share the stuff, and I don't want them getting in trouble and then me getting in trouble.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
let's just
Definitely.
put it this way: from what I'm seeing, matte finish,
Awesome.
because the 8 had that where you could get
Yeah.
actually like the set. Was it from the 7 that they did that where you had the true black? They had like the glossy and the matte finish black, depending on which one you got.
I think
I
it's
think
the
that was
8.
what I was thinking it was with the 7 because my parents have the 7 and the 7 Plus that they started doing that, but maybe it was the 8. Either way, that given that and given that the 11s, well, at least the Pros did matte finish,
Mhm.
and given that it's supposed to be based off from the design of the 8, but like they're more rounded edges like the 6 and the 7 kind of had.
Yep. Yep.
But the newer kind of camera bump like the 11 did, um, it's going to be an interesting blend for sure. Touch ID will still be there, which, in all honesty, I think that's a great thing because if you're talking about fixing a device, yes, you can wreck so that Touch ID won't work if you don't know what you're doing when you replace the front
Yeah.
screen. But it's way easier to mess up Face ID and make it so you only can use a pin, or so that it just won't unlock at all, than it
Right.
is to
Yeah.
mess up Touch ID. Because the other
Right.
thing that you could do is you can mess up Touch ID, but make it so that the home button function still works. And at least that would be okay, because otherwise you'd have to like go in and enable the accessibility functions and put the software touch thing on there, and you'd have to figure out how to do that
Yeah.
without touch access. Like you'd have to go right to settings right away and go through the things without messing up. So yeah,
Oh shoot.
so well, I've been on almost just over 2 hours and 9 minutes. It's almost 9 o'clock.
Awesome.
I know there's some other streams going on. I had like 7 or 8 people watching at one point, so that was great. I was like, what the heck? Apple Monster comes on and then it goes 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Well, I noticed the time. It's getting close to more streams coming on at 9, so everybody's hopping over there. So I will see
Yeah.
you all over in the other chats, and I will see you tomorrow morning back here with that guy over there for creator interviews too. Good night, y'all.
Yeah. See you guys. Talk to you guys tomorrow.